Hey there, y'all. This is Between Two Teeth. I'm Bobby. This is Stephy Steph.
Shout out.
And now for something completely different. We're going to do a Harvard Business Review. We're doing a review.
And just a little bit of background on this. You know, we love to read. We love the Wall Street Journal. Harvard Business Review fits right in there. Great articles. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. I think you just got a subscription.
I did. And this article is called Resilience is About How You Recharge, Not How You Endure. And two of the authors are actually a married couple. They're happiness researchers, Shawn, Achor, and Michelle Gielan. Terrific article. So why are we talking about? See, I've got the article right there, so they know that I actually read it.
I'll introduce. Let me introduce this. This is
why are we even talking about this?
We both feel so strongly about this topic on resilience, and the title of this article is "Resilience is About How You Recharge, Not About How You Endure." And I love this so much because I have gone about resilience in the completely wrong way in my life, because I think that the more you endure, the more you're resilient. You literally pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Recharge is for the weenies, and you're going to get this done.
Did you literally just say weenies?
Yeah.
And
a nice way to say it.
As a high school runner, college runner, you had to endure a lot of stuff.
I was an endurance athlete, so I think I have a little bit of an insight on this.
That's right, you do. And we used to think that's how you get tough. You endure, you tough it out. That's how you're going to get successful. You certainly need to put in the work.
So I'm going to start off by two quotes, one from my mom, one from my dad. This is what I heard all the time.
There are subscribers. This is good.
My mom would tell us, find a way to do what you love in life, in general, open-ended. Find a way to do what you love. She had it written on the wall. That was her thing. Find a way to do what you love. My dad was almost the exact opposite. He would say, find a way to make money, period. And then just be quiet about it.
Quiet about it.
Yes, and so you had these two people in my life. One was preaching, have fun, find a way to do what you love. That is impactful. That means that money doesn't matter. What matters is, do you enjoy what you're doing or not? And I think what my mom was trying to hit on, but that she couldn't communicate quite right, was that if you can't find a way to enjoy what you're doing, you won't be doing it very long.
Or you will be burned out. And burnout's a huge part of it.
And then you will not be able to physically do it. So let me talk to you a little bit about, and you can jump in here whenever you'd like.
Oh, good. I'd like to jump in right now.
Can I say one thing about that?
Sure.
Is that
I like the hat, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Shout out to our local Peticolas Brewery.
We are not sponsored by them, but
we want to be
very open to sponsorship.
To challenges there or opportunities there. So finding a way to do what you love, and you want to jump in.
No, it's just it makes sense to do that. But what we're talking about is resilience. And if you're doing something that you love, if you do too much of it, that can still be a challenge. That throws the work-life balance off. You know, we used to think that the longer you tough it out, the more successful you would be. This article from Harvard Business Review actually looked at the science. These are happiness researchers, and they said, no, in fact, the longer you tough it out, you're not going to be more successful because you're going to burn out. You need to recharge. Part of why this was impactful for me, we tend to take a touch of time off of practicing. We're dental specialists, and we did the Italian motorcycle adventure. We were over in Europe for almost 3 weeks. That's right. Germany. At the Freiburg or wherever that was. And so we took a lot of time off. I took a month off to do a public policy fellowship. People looked at us like we were bonkers. I realized I think it was my second last day of the fellowship, man, I am burned out. Because I wasn't recharging myself. I wasn't pulled out of my environment.
We're not robots. Human beings don't work that way. And actually, when we look at efficiency, I feel like, especially you and I, we want to do as much as humanly possible sometimes. And the reality there is, if you really try to do as much as humanly possible, you'll actually end up doing less. Yeah. I did a presentation when I was finishing up my integrative medicine fellowship. It was kind of a TED Talk setup, and it was on the power of simplicity. And specifically, if you imagine 4 burners, you have a stove top here, you have 4 burners, and each burner represents something in your life, whether it's family, health, jobs, or friends, and a job career. uh, know that if you're going to be very successful, turn one of those stove burners off. Again, the burners are family, health, job, friends. Which one are you going to turn off?
That made me sad.
That's a tough thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is the more successful you want to be on one of those burners, you've got to figure out kind of where you put your time and attention.
I would agree with that. And this article does talk about the research, and the research is specific that there's a direct correlation between lack of recovery and problems with health and safety.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And I live this one. When I was running, if I did not recover appropriately, and it's not just physical recovery, it's also mental recovery. If I did not recover appropriately, I would not perform the next day. And I wouldn't perform the next month for that matter. Part of the reason that I started to break down and get injured and, just kind of looking back at things, I was not happy running. I really wasn't enjoying it. And the more I pushed my body, the more I would pass out at the end of races, the lighter I was weight-wise. I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy it. Ergo, my body physically shut down because it was done.
I love it when people say ergo.
Oh, thank you.
I like that a lot. And when we're pushing hard, sleep tends to suffer. So much research on sleep, increased productivity, and then the opposite as well.
One of the hard lessons I learned in dental school was that if you cram the night before a big exam, somehow you can make a passing grade, but you're not going to retain that information long term. When I was in college, I was much more not as procrastinating, but because I was so burnt out of running at the end of my college career, that burnout was so profound, and I didn't realize how profound I was burned out, that it radiated to all aspects of my life, whether it was relationships, academics. You start dental school your first year and you realize you're not sleeping very much, and you don't want to study like you're studying how high schoolers might study, which is doing everything the night before. And if you don't get sleep, that memory, that long term, that deep understanding's not there.
The universe was telling you what you needed to hear. You were injured.
Yes, and
Other
so it
parts
plays
of your
into
life
your
are
resilience.
suffering.
And just because you see everyone around you doing something doesn't mean it's for you.
I'm going to read a quote. I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to pause you there as one of your favorite sayings. The article talks about the key to resilience is trying really hard, then stopping, recovering, and then trying again.
If you've ever learned how to do something that you're truly terrible at, or if you're learning a new skill, this quote rings home. And it takes resilience to learn something new. If you're going to go learn how to play the piano, you don't start one day and then the next day you're doing this great, piece of sheet music. It's a long-term process. You need to be resilient at it, though. You can't just sit in a room and just play piano day after day after day and not do anything else to recharge.
And I'm glad you said that. And they actually give recommendations as far as things you can do within the workspace, then after the workspace. When you're working, taking appropriate small little snippets, I'm going to call them snippets, where you have recovery time. When I'm at my office, we're not sponsored by Headspace, but I'd love to be sponsored by Headspace or Calm app.
Shout out.
Yeah, we like those. I do that. I do that for 15 minutes at lunchtime. And man, I feel so energized and so refreshed by doing that. Going for a walk, doing a couple sets of stairs. I was listening to another podcast, the Huberman Lab.
Huberman Lab. Shout out. Cross-promote.
Great podcast. Love Huberman and his lab. Am I still saying that
So
wrong?
what are you getting
Anyways, 20 seconds of something, physical activity, recharges you, does so much for you. You got to take the little tiny things. So if you're at work, do a 5-minute, 10-minute break to mentally or physically recover. When you're outside of work, do things on the weekends. You got to take vacations. I think there's good data that Americans were not great at taking vacations. When we were on the Italy motorcycle adventure, our Eastern European guides are like, yeah, several countries, you're mandated, you have to give the employees 2 weeks at a time.
And this is where America gets it wrong. This is where the competitive capitalism can hurt you. And I have a competitive mindset from time to all the time, actually.
Oh, yes, all the time.
All the time. And this is, it does hurt you though, in some ways. In some ways it pushes you to really achieve things. But when you're talking about recharging, you have to tuck away that competitive mindset because you cannot be on all the time.
Can't be on all the time. And they actually referenced a concept.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We'll make sure we hit on that reference concept. But really understanding what do you enjoy most in life, because life is it's a big lesson in resilience. And if you don't practice a good recharge method, both mentally and physically, and if you put a lot of your time and energy into things that drain you, or use your time when you're not really enjoying what you're doing, you can still be successful. There's a lot of examples out there of successes, people that are successful and they don't enjoy doing what they're doing. And guess what? It's crash, it's burn, it's burnout. So a lot of people in my generation, millennials, we experience burnout. I'm in healthcare, so a lot of my friends, whether they're PAs, physicians, dentists, nurses, their burnout is a real thing, and it's on a big scale.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge economic problem. I did my master's, my MBA in healthcare administration and leadership, and all components of healthcare, especially during COVID. COVID just magnified the problems that were there, and it became a huge issue. How do you recharge? What's in your toolbox?
So for me, I have the Headspace is a great way for meditation. The other thing is taking a moment to just decrease that competitive mindset. It's so easy.
Come on, seriously, how do you do that? You are both competitive.
Well, no, because especially it also depends on who you're around and who you're spending your time with. If you're spending your time with someone who is gregarious, you have to know how to recharge in a different way versus when you're spending your time with someone who is very introverted. Recharge for me looks 100% different depending on who's in the room. And I say that because I'm around patients with a cornucopia of personalities. And depending on the personality that's in the room with me, it takes a different way to recharge. So if I'm in the room with a gregarious personality that I really have to, I consider myself an extrovert, but if I really have to go above and beyond to meet this person where they're at, I have to recharge by being a lot more silent, quiet. I need peace. But if I'm around a patient that's really, I'm just trying to extract anything from them because they're so introverted, for me, I've got to go talk to somebody. I got to get out there. I've got to do a podcast. I got to really be giving and putting back into the world. And also, if I'm having a disagreement with someone, the way I recharge is I channel any anger, any just resentment into going on a run or putting it out through physical exercise. Also, sitting in a sauna or doing something where you are meditating.
So I don't do any of that until you said meditate. I never would have thought I'd be someone that would meditate. I still use Headspace. Once again, not a sponsor. Love to have you as a sponsor. Because it is so efficient for me, sometimes I get trapped up in the efficiency. I've talked about that here before. For me, I need sleep. I need to do a better job with that. That's one of my goals for 2023 is to hit that 7 hours because I can, quote, function really well with little sleep. All the data shows less sleep equals shorter sleep, shorter lifespan. There's a lot of positives. So I need to sleep more. I need to chill out. I need to work out more to recharge myself.
And I think we're saying a little bit of the same thing. I know you say you don't do any of that, but I think you do a lot of that stuff.
I probably do the same. Okay.
And basically, this article really touched on a lot of the things that I think we both experience because we are both competitive personalities. And resilience to us, to me, I always thought it was about endurance, and it's not. And this is me as an endurance athlete talking about it. And it's so obvious when you start to deconstruct a concept like this. But I do think true success that is resilient success is at the intersection of what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what's your natural aptitude.
And the science behind this, what I was going to reference was a professor, Brent Furl from Texas A&M. He came up with a concept, homeostatic value, and basically just saying the system always wants a homeostasis. And if you push way too hard without that recovery to get you back in balance, things get out of alignment and bad things happen.
We definitely want to be in alignment. When you talk to people who are trying to have their first kiddo, say, or they, you look at, I chatted with, there's a OB-GYN in my one of my surgical leadership programs, and she was talking about when women come to her, families come to her, and they haven't been able to have a kiddo, or they're just trying really hard and they can't. She says, she talks to them about, well, what are their stress levels in their life? What is this homeostatic value? Are they drinking a lot of caffeine late at night? Are they getting their sleep? Are they eating right? Is job super stressful? And when she just has, in her sphere of influence, it's, about creating children, but she's talking specifically about when you are wanting the body to perform. You have to have some homeostasis there. Don't do things that really get you out of that homeostasis or that homeostatic value, which plays very much into what this professor at A&M is saying.
And as you talk about that, if we reference it from the standpoint of weightlifting, I'm trying to do more weights. I always hated lifting weights. Realize that's one of the keys to longevity is lifting weights. If you say, I want you to go to the gym all day, spend the 8 hours in the gym. Next day, I want you to go back, do the same muscles over and over again. Continue doing that.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. It's the recovery is the magic.
And that's exactly what I'm saying with my piano example earlier on in this, is that you need, and I think this article also references performance zones. And so in running, the synonym to that is easy days. And so you can't always be maxing out.
Performance zone, recovery zone.
The trick here is drawing a parallel between what we all know for athletics. I mean, anyone who's gone outside and ran down the street or kicked a soccer ball once in their life knows you can't always be at your max. But what we don't get is that at our work or our jobs or careers, what we do from 9 to 5, we try to do at our max every day. We don't draw that so obvious parallel.
And I'm going to say that a lot of times we're chastised if we're not having the foot down on the gas all the time.
Right.
We actually get a lot of pushback for taking time off that we do.
I get people asking me all the time, do I work? And it's hilarious because I know me and I'm like, wow, that's crazy that I have that perception, because I'm someone who would probably be more leaning towards a workaholic.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up workaholic. I'd actually sent this article to my MBA classmates in dealing with workaholics. A lot of us are there.
Yeah, and a lot of things when I really deconstruct, okay, why, when I pick up something new, why do I want to get so good at it so quick? And part of it is, one, I'm impatient, and two, part of resilience and part of goal setting. No, don't pick a goal necessarily based on, oh, I like this outcome, so I'm going to do this. When you're working towards something, part of enjoying the journey or the process is just that.
You're good at that.
I don't know if I'm too good at that.
No, you're good. You write on, like when you're reading a newspaper article.
When I look at, my point is that when I'm looking at what endeavor I am going to embark upon, I'm starting to look more carefully at, well, what do I enjoy? What is the simple tasks, the everyday tasks? What do I enjoy with that? Because if I don't like the slow days, if I don't enjoy the monotony, the day to day, whatever I'm doing, I'm not going to be very resilient at, because if I don't enjoy those little steps, the baby steps, there's no way, because I've lived the opposite. There's no way it's going to go for a long time.
The start of the article, once again, these are happiness researchers. They're on an airplane, and they're trying to figure out why can't they enjoy the disconnect from technology? Why can't they look at this and say, this is downtime?
They want to be more productive, and they're not productive.
They want to be more productive, and then you're not productive. There's a lot of apps that they kind of reference at the back end of the article where your phone will not interrupt you. Most of us are so distracted by so many things continually through the day. Our push, I think, for y'all is to say, how are you going to actively recover? What's that going to look like? Maybe it's taking the vacation that you're trying not to. Maybe it's more sleep. Maybe it's reading a book for pleasure. Maybe it's meditation.
I would also add on to that. I mean, active recovery is a talent. It takes a very close understanding of what your body needs, what your mind needs to have active recovery, versus just kind of figuring it out by just recovering, just taking the win.
A lot of times, a lot of us just figure it out.
Yeah.
We just go, But that's why I like this article and I like the science behind it.
Right.
That says the science will show you will be more productive. It's a time for a nap. And I'd like to take more naps. I love naps. That's in part why I love meditation. But you will be more productive. Anything else? How are you going to close it up? How are you going to be different based on this article, if at all?
So the biggest takeaway from this is that your balance here, so wherever you find that max efficiency doesn't necessarily mean you're always putting your nose to the grindstone. Max efficiency comes from max resiliency, and max resiliency comes from knowing how to recharge. And that's an internal answer. It's not an external one. And where I get caught up in with my competitive mindset is when I see externally other people doing things when I'm not doing something. What I don't see is when they are slowing down. So when I see someone doing something really well, I want to do it really well right when they are so I don't fall behind. But it wears me out sometimes to do that. Now, sure, I can do it for a minute, I can do it for a month, but it doesn't make any sense because these answers on resiliency come from an internal understanding of what you need and when you need it. So don't get caught up in the step-for-step competition. Instead, look internally, understand what you need to do to recharge. It's going to be different for you than it is for the next person.
And try not to compare. You got to be comfortable with uncomfortable signs. Try not to compare. You don't know what the other people's journey looks like. Social media does some tricky things as far as it allows people to show just some of the great things that are going on. I think we're part of the problem on that. Sometimes we don't show our failures and our challenges as much as we
Let's do
need to.
a quick failure. What's the last failure you had?
Oh, you go first. I don't know.
That's putting you on the spot. You got to be honest. What's the last failure you had?
We had kind of an important interview right before this, and I messed up the audio. And I felt terrible because this person had like 150,000 plus subscribers.
That's cool. I'm going to be a little bit more authentic.
Yeah, you are.
That's a superficial answer.
Well,
that actually qualifies as your most recent failure.
Thank you.
Answering that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, failures are tough, but that's part of it.
Okay, tell us.
My failure is leadership in the clinic.
Yes.
I'm miserable when it comes to that, and part of it is because it's like what's that? Imposter syndrome almost. Mm-hmm. I don't feel valuable. I don't feel worthy enough to tell another human being how to do their job. And the problem is when you're a leader, you need to be able to do that. I feel very much imposter syndrome a lot of times just because of my height, because I'm looking up at these people. Some of these people are older than me, and it's super tough, and it's easy to scare me, just to scare me into a corner of unworthiness.
Where I think you had huge growth this week.
That's called being honest, real, and vulnerable.
Thank you.
And that's going to lead to growth.
It will.
And change.
It will.
One day I hope you're able to be honest and vulnerable.
Someday
I'll
get there.
Yeah.
Someday I'll get there. And you actually grew a lot this week because you actually said something. Something happened and you said, I think it was a challenge in my leadership skills.
Yeah,
And
I'm
self-awareness
I have
is
turned
growth.
a corner like in the last I just had like this past week I had a couple of the most miserable days I've ever
Well,
had in my life.
don't bring everybody down with. Or do you want to talk about it, or
Oh, I don't think I don't think I mean, I don't think for our five audience members.
well, your mom listens
No,
twice.
so this is authentic, and I
Okay.
think people enjoy listening to authenticity. I don't think everyone wants to hear just the superficial fun stuff.
Well, and we just talked about that. That sometimes we don't do a good job at being authentic.
I don't know if
I don't like being authentic.
both of us do a great job of being authentic, but I can't
Yeah.
help it. I love being authentic, actually. I love it, and it hurts me because I probably am way too honest, but I love it. Oh my gosh, there is a feel good power. I'll tell you that right now, in being honest and worthy there. Yeah, but yeah, it is tough. It's tough to go through a really tough week. You crawl inside your own head, and it's kind of scary in there sometimes. And you realize some things though. When you go to those dark places, you realize some things. You crawl out of that with the help of others, and you come out more informed and with a much greater perspective. And so for me, this week has been about just changing the perspective, knowing where you're pointing at something that's
Oh,
distracting
just
you.
talk into the microphone.
No, that's distracting me. That's
Sorry.
exactly how much he listens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, no. So what I'm saying is that when you're trying to live an authentic life, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have failures. It's okay to admit, where you're not great at. I've got a long way to go in leadership, and it starts with authenticity. And for you, I would say it starts in listening. You guys have no idea.
I have said that was
I,
one
I've
of the
been
things
trying
I was
to I've
going to
been
work
trying
on.
to say something now for the last
No,
like 2 minutes, and you have been distracting
You're
me.
touching all the
This is
audio equipment. It makes
exactly.
sounds. Don't touch the microphone.
I
Talk
can't
into the
help but wonder
microphone.
where I would be right now
Twisting.
if it wasn't just
She's
two people on this
twisted
thing.
cables and stuff, and all that makes sound.
I was trying to have a last 4 minute power hour, but I'm sorry,
We
we wasted your time. Maybe next time I'll be able to complete my
time.
thought.
I will try to be a better listener. And so,
It's nice to be heard,
How are you? Yes, it is.
but unfortunately I cannot be heard.
Well, the listeners. That's why we have listeners. We've
Yeah.
got 5 subscribers.
Thanks, man.
How are you going to recharge this weekend?
I'm going to ask you, since you have failed to be authentic.
I am going to try to do a better job at doing nothing.
Okay. I'm going to recharge with friends. I'm going to go hang out with people that make me feel really good and I enjoy spending my time with. And so that's how I'm going to recharge. And I've not always done a great job at that. Sometimes, especially when you're 20s, 30s even, you're really trying to figure out your clan, your crew. You're trying to figure out who to spend your time with. The 5 people you spend the most time with tends to be who you are. And so there's a lot of pressure there. But what I'm going to do this week is recharge by interacting with and spending the time with the people I want to spend time with because they make me feel good.
That is cool. I'm getting an opportunity to go to something with my middle chap, Johnny J.
Oh,
and
nice,
I'm
man.
super looking forward to that. Well, listen, we appreciate you coming on this journey for something different. Harvard Business Review article. We'll put the link where? Show notes? Can we call it show notes?
We can call it show notes.
We can call it show notes. We'll put the link there. Check it out. These are happiness researchers dealing with science. Thanks for joining us, y'all.